and welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by yarnspirations.com. In this video, I will show you everything you need to know to create the Jolly Santa knit basket. The materials for this basket are very easy. You will need 2 balls of Red Heart with Love in eggshell and 1 ball of Red Heart with Love in tan, bubblegum, and hollyberry. Along with the yarn, you will need a set of size 15 circular needles, a set of size 10.5 circular or straight needles, 2 nice buttons to use as the eyes, some sewing thread and a needle, and a good pair of scissors. This basket is made using 4 strands of yarn throughout, which means even though you've purchased 1 skein of the Red Heart with Love in hollyberry, you will need to divide this 1 skein up into 2 4-strand balls. So it's a little bit of prep work, but it makes it so that way you don't have to purchase 4 skeins of hollyberry in order to make the project. Now, if you happen to have 4 skeins of hollyberry sitting around and you just want to pull a strand from all 4 skeins, you absolutely could do that. But because the designer wrote it in such a way that you don't have to purchase that much yarn, it is only 1 ball that you will need, or 1 skein you will need, and then divide that into individual 4-strand balls. And all of that is written in the pattern. Speaking of the pattern, it is free over at yarnspirations.com. You will find a link to the written pattern in the video description box right down there below. And while you're down there, please smash that like button, as my kids say. Once you have the pattern, go ahead and gather your materials, and I will walk you through the various things you need to know to complete this basket. I'm not completing a full basket in the video, but I am going to touch on the different points that I feel like you might need a little extra help in order to create this basket. So let's go ahead and jump in. Once you get your pattern, it looks a little something like this, and this is a basic yarnspirations.com pattern. The full list of yarn materials you need is listed right over here underneath the name of the designer, which is Nancy Anderson. And then over here is the list of needles you'll need, and then all the little extra bits I mentioned. There's also a section here where it lists optional materials, and it includes a yoga mat and then all the materials needed to cut that yoga mat. The yoga mat would be used to add more structure to your basket should you want to do that after the fact. I'm not going to do that in the video. It's really self-explanatory. If you choose to add a yoga mat, I feel like you could absolutely accomplish that on your own. One thing I do want to point out about this particular pattern is there's a large area of notes here, and these are important. This basket is worked back and forth. So even though we're going to be using circular needles, we're just using those to accommodate the number of stitches we will have on our needle. We are not going to be working this back and forth. And that also says this right here, that the circular needles are used to accommodate the number of stitches. The color changes to create the face right here. We will be working what's called Intarsia to create those color changes. So I'll show you how to do that in the video. And then the nose and the mustache, they're worked separately from the actual basket. That is actually what you will use the smaller needles for. And in the pattern, it says these could be straight needles, and you could use these as straight needles, but I happen to only have some circulars, so that's what I'm going to use. It goes on further about the color changes. We're not going to go into that because I'm going to show you. And then this is the part where it talks about winding the yarn into 4 separate balls, and then exactly how many 4-strand balls you will need of each color. Again, if you have 4 skeins of each color, you could just pull from each of the skeins and work along that way until it comes to the part for the Intarsia where you will need 2 separate sections because you don't want to strand the yarn across. But this is really self-explanatory. I don't want to go over it in the video, but I do want to point out that that is here. It also mentions on here that if the basket, this is in the note section down here, if you wanted to make the base in rounds instead of back and forth, you could do that. I'm not going to show you how to do that in this video. I'm going to follow the pattern pretty closely as it's written, but if you choose to make the base in the round and then go back and forth so that you can do the Intarsia, you could do that. So those are just the basic stuff I need you to know. In this video, I am going to show you how to do the knit front and back, the purl front and back. I will also show you how to do the Intarsia, and that's when we're working on the face section. This basket really is quite simple, and for an intermediate knitter, you probably could accomplish this. There's probably just a couple things that you don't really know how to do. You might be questioning a little bit, and those are the things I want to focus on in this video. So we're going to get started with the pattern, but you really will need to have that pattern in front of you to continue on with the instructions, okay? I'm just going to show you how to get through, all right? So without further ado, I'm going to grab my main color, my eggshell, and get you started on the base. Grab your 4-strand ball of your eggshell and go ahead and cast on 6 stitches in your preferred cast on method. I like the long tail cast on, so I'm going to work the long tail cast on. 4, 5, and 6. Now, as we work through these stitches, we want to be very cautious and make sure we are working through all 4 strands of the yarn. Don't just go through a couple strands, okay? So we want to make sure we're working all of those strands. And we continue on to the row 1 of the base of the basket. Now we will be increasing on this portion, so we jump right into our first increases on all of these stitches. So we start off with our purl front and back. So I'm going to go ahead, bring my yarn to the front, and I will go into this first stitch as if to purl and purl it, and then go into the back leg of that same stitch. You see I'm through the back leg, and I will purl through the back leg. Now I let that stitch jump off, and I continue on. Purl through the front leg, go to the back leg, and purl. They're a little bit snug here to start. Make sure as you're working these stitches, don't let them just rest down here on the tapered portion. Push them up to the actual knitting needle barrel so that way they become the correct size and your stitches don't get too tight. Once you've worked the purl front and back in each stitch, you now have 12 stitches and you can carry on. We will rotate our work and move on to row 2, which has us begin with a knit 1. Make sure you go through all 4 strands. And now we do a knit front and back. So I will go into the next stitch as if to knit, and knit through the front leg, go into the next, or that same stitch through the back leg, and knit through the back leg, and then off. And then I repeat that down the row. So I will knit 1, and then knit front and back. At the end of this row, you now have 18 stitches and you rotate your work. On the next row, we will continue on and we will purl 2 stitches and then purl front and back. Purl 2, purl front and back. You will carry on in this manner for the base of the basket. On all of the wrong side rows, you will work a set number of stitches and then purl front and back. On your right side rows, you will knit for a set number of stitches and then knit front and back. You work this through row 14 until you have 90 stitches total on your needle. Then you will work in plain stockinette for 18 more rows. Now, plain stockinette means on the wrong side, you will be purling all the way across, and on the right side, you will be knitting all the way across. Pretty simple stuff. You should know how to do all of that at this point because I've shown you how to purl front and back, how to knit front and back, and you know how to knit and purl. So follow along with the pattern through row 32, and then we can move on to where we begin to add the colors for the face. And this is where we will introduce Intarsia. Sound off. Have you tried Intarsia knitting before? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know if this is your first time ever giving it a whirl. Looking down here, you can see I've worked up a little swatch to be able to work the face section of the basket with you. I have 34 stitches on my needle and there are 30 stitches on the face, so I'll just keep the first 2 and the last 2 stitches in the eggshell, but I'll keep the 30 stitches in between in the colors of the face. Now, speaking of the face, you'll notice that I have set up some different bobbins here, and this is exactly what you would do with your balls of yarn. Each bobbin has 4 strands of that particular color, and I need to be able to have these separated so when it's time to work with these colors, each ball is independent of the other, because we will not be stranding yarn across the colors like you would do if you were doing Fair Isle. We will literally drop the old color, pick up the new color, and carry on. So it's important you have these bobbins or your separated balls of yarn. So I'm going to scooch these out of the way, and let's go ahead and we will jump in with row 1 of the face, which is a wrong side row. So I'm looking at my wrong side, which is a purl side, and I will continue on. Now it starts off and it says to purl 30. Again, I don't have all the stitches on here, so I'm going to begin with just a purl 2, just so that way I can get to the next bit of instruction. So I will purl 1, and then I will purl 2. Now I'm supposed to do purl 4 with color B. So I will drop this color. I will no longer use it. I'll grab my color B, which is my tan here, and I will grab my tan and continue on purling 4 stitches with my color B. So there's 1, whoops, I can get that off there, 2, 3, and 4. Now I have to purl 7 with my color C. So I'm dropping my color B. I will grab my color C, which is my pink, my bubble gum. I'm going to get some off of my bobbin, and I will purl 7 with this color. Okay. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, I'm done with those 7, and I have to go back to color B, but I will not use this ball of color B. I will use another ball or another one of my bobbins of color B, so I'll have many bobbins by the time it's time to work all of these stitches. But I'll grab this bobbin of color B, and I am supposed to purl 8. So I would wrap this and continue on with my purling 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, just like before, I have to go back to my color C, but I do not want to use this one. I will grab my other bobbin. Look at this, it's all the way over here waiting for me. And I'm supposed to purl 7 with this one. So there's 1, let me make sure I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oops, I missed one, 5, 6, and 7. Now I go back to my color B and I will knit 4. Again, I need another ball, another bobbin. You will have all of these going. This is just for a short amount of time here. So it will look a little bit confusing to begin, but it won't be this way for very long. So I will purl my 4. And then I'm back to where I need to do purl 30 with my color A. So this is where I'd bring my color A back and I would carry on with my purl 30. Whoops. Let me get this over here ready to go. I know it looks very confusing, but so far you can tell I've just changed colors when it was time and just continue on with the instructions. Pretty simple. Now it's time to turn. So for me, I'm always just real careful, and I just rotate it around, and everything's still in the right place. And here we go. Now this time, when it's time to change colors, we don't have to add the new ball or bobbin of yarn because it's already attached. But the way we twist the yarn together is important because it will eliminate any hole you might get in your project. What we will do is when it's time to transition from color A to color B, we will drop our old color and pick up our new, twisting them together. Let me show you. So this would be knit 30. Obviously, I don't have 30 stitches of the white, but we're going to make this work. So I would knit 1 and 2. Now it's time for me to get my brown here, okay? And for this one, I'm going to knit 4. So I'm going to take my old color, put it over my new color. See that? And now I'll pick up my new color and carry on. So my old color is resting on top of my new, and now I will knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's time for me to change colors. I'm going to knit 7 with my color C. So I'm going to come over here, find my color C, here it is, take my old, drop it on top of my new, pick up my new, and carry on. So I knit 7 with my color C. Make sure I get all 4 strands. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, once again, old over new. Make sure you get the right one. There it is right there. Pick that up. And this time we did 7, so now we have to do, let's see, with B, we're going to knit, well, let me see here. So we did 7, we're going to knit 8. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, we're changing colors, right? So old over new, bring the new one back up here. Make sure those are all down there. Lots of yarn kind of hanging out here, but old over new, and you carry on with your new. I didn't go through all 4 of them. There we are. And we're coming up to the last color change for the face bit, with the exception of the body color. So we're going to be going into that brown, so old over new. So I got to find where the brown is, my tan. Here it is. Old over new. Grab my new and do my 4 of my new. And then we are back to the body of our project. So I go old over new and back to my eggshell color. And I would just knit my 30 to the end. So let's take a peek here real quickly at what we have. You can see all of my color changes are starting to take shape. And with all of these ends here at the beginning, when we go back and weave in these ends, it will close up any sort of perceived hole right now. But as long as you trap your old over new every time you come to where there's a color change, your work will be nice and neat as you're working along. Again, here at the start, it's the beginning loops that are just a little bit loose, but it will be nice and clean. Okay, it's really easy. And then once again, when it's time to change, you just rotate them around. You can actually lift them up like this and kind of see them dangling. Lay them back down, and you're back on the purl side, and you would go along and still do the old over new, and it will make it nice and neat. But you can see the back side here, okay? So let's do a couple here just so you can see the purl with the color changes. Let me get this all in the right. I find that whenever I do Intarsia, I end up throwing my yarn instead of my preferred continental. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. Okay, so I've done my 2, and that would have been my 30. And now I'm switching to my color B. So here is my color B bobbin that I need. So here's my old over top of my new, although I have my, just a second here, bobbin control. There we are. Old over new, pick up my new, and then carry on with the pattern, whatever the pattern says. So for this one, this would be row 3, I'm purling 5. So this one, I will be going 1 stitch further than I've done before. So this would be 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going into the pink, and this would be 5. And now with the pink, I'm going to purl 5. So I go here, old over new, so old, here's my new, this is my new color I want to work with. Let me get it here. And even though I've worked over just 1 stitch, it's okay. Old over new, and just continue on. See? It's really nothing to be afraid of. Just keep consistent tension and always do that old over new, and you will be just fine working along these stitches. So that was 4. Oh, you know what? I skipped one back there. Let's do that. There we are. Now we have it. Remember, leave no strand behind. There's 5, old over new. Here's my new right here. And it carries on. Let's take a look at this as it is right now. You can see all the twists, old over new. And the opposite side, if I pull down my strands, they look nice and neat. Pretty easy stuff. Now you know how to do Intarsia. It really is quite simple. You just have to remember that each section of color gets its own ball of yarn. And when it's time to transition from one color to the next, you always do old over new, so that way you don't get a hole between the 2 colors. It's really easy. I will let you know that when it comes time that you're using just one solid color across the face, when you're just using the tan, you no longer have to have 3 balls of tan going. You can't just have 1 ball of tan going from one side of the face across those 30 stitches to the other side of the face and change colors back to the eggshell. You don't have to have the 3 different balls. So it is fairly easy. And again, with the rest of the instructions, it's knits and purls, a couple purl front and backs, a couple knit front and backs, whether you're making the nose or the mustache. You should have no problem working the rest of this pattern without my help. I really did want to focus this video on specific items that I felt like you might have questions for when you're making this basket. For example, the increases at the bottom. Why aren't you working in the round? Well, when you do Intarsia, it's a little bit tricky to work in the round with Intarsia, so it's better to have the entire basket worked up flat, so that way you just seam the whole thing up and you don't ever have to worry about part of it in the round and part of it flat. But if you want to make it that way, you could. I also, again, wanted to focus on how to do those increases, both the knit front and back and the purl front and back. And then last but not least, I did want to show you how to control those colors and work those Intarsia stitches. They're really not as difficult as they might seem to be, but I figured if once you saw me do them, you could be like, oh, all right, I can accomplish that with no problem. I would love to see your finished Santa basket. Make sure you share with me on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag Yarnspirations, and I will be sure to go around and smash your like button. Follow me on Instagram or on Facebook or on Pinterest. I'm in all three places. I'm Marley Bird for Yarnspirations.com. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.